I've always noticed that the rain in Cloverdale sounds different from other places, more insistent, as if it wanted to reach everyone. Now that Edward was gone, it was a constant reminder of the emptiness that filled the house. 3 months later, I was still making coffee for 2 in the morning out of habit. 43 years of marriage ended on an ordinary Tuesday. No dramatic last words, no touching goodbyes, just a heart stopping in its sleep, and I woke up a widow. Edward had always been stingy with his emotions, but reliable as a rock. Apparently, even in his passing, he'd stayed true to himself, quietly, uncluttered. Our house in Cloverdale seems too big now. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, and a garden that Edward had methodically cultivated every weekend for the past 20 years. I have to hire a gardener, a young man named Oliver, who does everything wrong. But I hesitate to tell him. The phone rings at exactly 10 in the morning as scheduled. The screen reads Declan, my son, my flesh and blood, who for some reason I fear more than I once feared the strict teachers at school. Mom, are you taking those pills Dr. Brooks prescribed you? His voice sounds irritated, as if talking to me is an unpleasant duty that can't be postponed. Good morning, Declan. Yes, I'm following the doctor's orders. I answer, trying to sound cheerful. Good. Vanity and I will stop by on Sunday to check on you, he says. Not a question, but a statement. By the way, have you sorted out your father's things yet? Can we make room in the garage? That's the real reason for the call. Not concern for my health, but a garage that can be used to store their junk. Declan is 41, but sometimes I think he's still 15. The same selfishness, the same lack of empathy. I'm not ready to go through his stuff yet. I answer quietly. There's a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. I can almost hear him rolling his eyes. Mom, it's been 3 months. We need to move on. It's just stuff. To him, they're just things to me, the last tangible evidence of a life together. I'll take care of it when I'm ready. There's a sudden firmness in my voice that surprises us both. Okay, suit yourself. See you Sunday. He cuts off the call without waiting for my response. I sit staring at the faded phone screen. When did our relationship turn into this? When did my boy, the one I read bedtime stories to, become this cold, calculating man? The house sinks into silence, broken only by the ticking of the old floor clock that Edward adamantly refused to change. They have character, Laurie, he used to say. I walk up to our bedroom, now just my bedroom, and pull a photo album from the nightstand. I stare at snapshots from the past, as if trying to find the moment when everything went wrong. Here's Declan, 6 years old, smiling, hugging us both. Here's his high school graduation. He's already aloof, as if embarrassed by us. And here's his wedding to Vanity. He's looking at her with an adoration I've never seen directed at Edward or me. Vanity P., Newport, tall, always impeccably dressed, with a smile that never reaches her eyes. She works in corporate training, always talking about some kind of training and coaching sessions. But in their 11 years of marriage, I've never once seen her show any real kindness or empathy. Lorraine, have you thought about moving to something more age-appropriate? Her favorite question, asked with fake concern in her voice every time they visit. Edward couldn't stand her. A snake in designer shoes. He muttered as they drove away, and he was right. I remember how at the funeral she was more worried about taking appropriate photos for social media than supporting her grief-stricken husband, although, to be fair, Declan didn't look particularly grief-stricken. I close the album and walk over to the window. The rain has intensified, pounding the roof with furious force. My thoughts go back to that night, just a week before Edward died, when he made the confession that changed everything. We were sitting in the living room. There was a documentary on TV about the Mediterranean, and Edward was watching it with unusual attention. I was knitting a scarf for Declan that he would never wear. Laurie, Edward said suddenly, using my pet name, "Do you remember that trip to Spain 15 years ago?" Of course I remembered. 2 weeks in a small village on the Costa Brava, one of the few real trips we'd allowed ourselves. Edward was an accountant with his own small practice. I worked as a coordinator for an insurance company. We were never rich, but we weren't poor either. I remember it was wonderful there. I said, still knitting. "I bought a house there." He said simply. The needles froze in my hands. I looked up, sure I'd misheard him. "You what?" "I bought a house in that village, El Pueblo del Mar. It's small, 2 bedrooms with a sea view and a garden. It's in your name." I looked at my husband as if I'd seen him for the first time in 43 years. Edward, the methodical, cautious Edward who could spend a week thinking about buying a new coffee pot, had secretly bought a house in another country. But how, when, was all I could squeeze out. 5 years ago, he said calmly, as if he were announcing the purchase of new socks. I've been saving a little over the years, separate from our joint savings. Prices hadn't skyrocketed back then. Plus, I had some good investments I didn't tell you about. Why didn't you say anything? Edward turned off the TV and turned to me. His face, usually impassive, was a strange mixture of guilt and determination. First, I wanted to surprise you on our 40th anniversary. Then, he hesitated. Then, I started to notice Declan's interest in our finances. How he and Vanity started hinting that it was time for us to simplify our lives. I realized that if he found out about all of our assets, he wouldn't rest until he took them for himself. I wanted to object, to defend my son, but I couldn't, because Edward was right. In recent years, Declan had talked more and more often about not needing a big house at our age, that we could sell it and move into a cozy apartment or a comfortable retirement home. Every such conversation ended with a question about our will. "I know he's our son," Edward continued, "but I don't trust him, Laurie, and I certainly don't trust his wife. If they find out about the house in Spain, they will not rest until they force us to sell it and give them the money." "What are you suggesting?" I asked, feeling strangely calm considering the circumstances. "I want you to promise me not to tell anyone about the house, even after I'm gone." He paused, "Especially after I'm gone." "Why are you talking about dying?" I tensed. Edward shrugged with the fatalistic simplicity that had always characterized him. "I'm 68, Laurie. I've had 2 heart attacks. I don't plan on dying anytime soon, but we have to be realistic. When I'm gone, Declan's going to come at you like a vulture. He'll want every penny. That house in Spain is your insurance policy. It's your escape route." I kept quiet, digesting the information. It was a strange feeling to find out that your husband had been leading a double financial life for years, albeit a well-intentioned one. "It's all ready to go," Edward continued. "The house is fully furnished, and the utilities are set up to be automatically debited from the Spanish account, which is also in your name. There's enough money in the account to last you several years. All the documents are in a safe in my office. You know the code." "Edward, I don't even speak Spanish." It was the most ridiculous argument I could think of, but it was the only one that came to mind. He smiled, a rare warm smile that he saved for special occasions. "Half the people in that village are retirees from England and Germany. You don't need Spanish to be happy there." I didn't know what to feel. Shock at the news, a strange gratitude for his foresight, resentment that he kept it from me for so many years, and an unsettling feeling that he was right about our son. "Promise me, Laurie," Edward insisted, looking me straight in the eye. "Promise me that you won't tell anyone about the house in Spain until you're absolutely sure it's safe." And I promised, and a week later he died in his sleep, and I was left alone with a secret that felt physically heavy. I never dared to look in that safe after he died. It was as if opening it would finally acknowledge that Edward was gone, Or maybe I was afraid it would all turn out to be some kind of weird joke or deathbed fantasy. But today, after Declan's call, I realized it's time I knew the truth. Edward's office has been untouched since the day he left. An old oak desk, a worn leather chair, shelves of books on accounting, and the historical novels he secretly adored. The safe, small and inconspicuous, is hidden behind a painting of a view of London. My fingers tremble as I type in the code, our wedding day. Inside is a neat stack of papers in a clear folder. On top is a letter sealed in an envelope with my name written in Edward's familiar angular handwriting. Dear Lorraine, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer around, and our son has probably begun to take a keen interest in your finances and possessions. Everything I told you about the house in Spain is true. It's all yours. All the necessary documents are in this folder. You'll also find bank account details, maps, and contacts for the local manager who looks after the house. I know you're probably mad at me for keeping this from you. I know you find it hard to believe that our son could be so callous as to deprive you of everything, but trust my experience. I've seen too many families destroyed by inheritance to risk it. This house is your freedom, Laurie. Use it when the time comes. Always yours, Edward. Tears cloud my eyes, and it takes me a moment to realize I'm not alone in the room. What are you doing in Dad's office? I turn around sharply. Declan is standing in the doorway. I didn't even hear him come into the house. You scared me. I say discreetly, putting the letter back in the folder. I thought you were coming on Sunday. I was driving by, so I thought I'd stop by. He walks into the room, glancing at the shelves of books. There's a lot of valuable titles here, you know. I should have them appraised. They're your father's books, not for sale. I say, feeling the familiar irritation growing in my chest. Declan smiles indulgently, like to a small child. Mom, be practical. You need money more than you need old books. By the way, I spoke to a financial advisor. He thinks you should consider investing the money from the house sale and hire, yielding assets, selling the house. I ask, freezing. What sale? Well, we talked about it. He waves his hand nonchalantly. This house is too big for you alone. It's expensive to maintain. You could move to a smaller apartment or that retirement home I told you about. We never talked about selling the house, Declan. Yes, we did, Mom. It's just that you forgot. He looks at me with a concern that I can see through now. You've been forgetting a lot of things lately. That's normal at your age, but that's why you need help with your finances. I clutch the file folder tighter. Edward was right. Our son is really trying to take everything that isn't his, not even shy about using lies and manipulation. I'm not oblivious, Declan. My voice sounds unexpectedly firm, and I'm not going to sell the house. He sighs as if he's talking to an unreasonable child. Let's see what vanity has to say. She can be persuasive. He glances at his watch. I got to go. Don't forget to take your medicine. And he leaves, leaving me in Edward's office with a folder of papers in my hands and the growing realization that my late husband was much wiser than I'd thought. The morning light seeps through the curtains, forming golden patterns on the floor. I'm awake now, but I'm not up yet, allowing myself to leisurely sink into the new day. It's a habit I've picked up since Edward's death. I used to always wake up to my alarm clock, but now it feels like time has stretched out, becoming both my enemy and my friend. Today is Sunday, the day of Declan and Vanity's visit. I mentally prepare for their arrival as I would for a natural disaster, inevitable, destructive, but something to be endured. I force myself up, and as I pass the mirror, I notice my reflection. Lorraine Newport, 65 years old, gray hair in a careless bun. Wrinkles that Edward had once called wisdom lines, I don't look my age, older or younger, I don't know. The years have left their mark, but my eyes are still alive with the same stubborn glint of youth. I make breakfast, avocado toast with eggs, the way Edward liked it. Then, on second thought, I put away the second portion. These mechanical acts of habit are the most painful reminders of loss. At precisely 11:00, Declan's brand, new SUV shows up in the driveway. Huge, ridiculously luxurious for their family of two. They never had kids. Vanity always said that children are obligations that get in the way of self-fulfillment. Sometimes I think a grandson or granddaughter might have changed her, softened her. And sometimes I thank fate that it didn't happen. You wouldn't wish a mother like that on anyone. Mom, Declan's voice sounds fake, cheerful as they enter the house without knocking, another little thing that stabs the heart. How are you feeling? Fine, thank you. I reply, accepting my son's formal hug and an air kiss from Vanity, who smells of expensive perfume and some strange chemical odor. Lorraine, you've lost weight. Vanity notes, giving me an appraising look. That's good. Overweight at your age is a direct route to joint problems. I smile without answering. Vanity always finds a way to give a supposed compliment that is actually a veiled criticism. I made lunch, I say, heading for the kitchen. I hope you're staying. Declan and Vanity exchange quick glances. Actually, Mom, we have dinner plans. Declan says, we just stopped by to check on you. Of course, they never stay for lunch, even though I cook every time. I used to love to cook when I was young. Edward used to joke that he married me because of my apple pie. Now that I cook for myself, I've almost lost interest in it. But I always try for my son and daughter-in-law. Too bad. I say, trying to hide my disappointment. I made a roast, red meat. Vanity raises her eyebrows. Lorraine, you know it's bad for your heart, especially at my age. Yes. I finish for her, feeling the irritation rising inside. I've heard about it from you many times. There's an awkward pause. Declan clears his throat. Mom, we actually came here to talk about something important. He pauses, obviously choosing his words. Vanity and I have been thinking a lot about your future. Here it is. I already know where he's going with this, but I decide not to make it easy for him. My future. I ask innocently, yes. He looks around as if gathering evidence. This house, it's too big for you alone. The upkeep, the cleaning, the garden. It all takes effort and money. I can manage. I answer calmly, for now, yes. Vanity chimes in with that distinctive tone she uses in her corporate training sessions. But we have to think about the future. 5 or 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot harder to maintain a house this big. Exactly, Declan adds. What if something happens to you? All down the stairs, for example, you're all alone out here. I'm struck by how easily they talk about my potential helplessness, as if it were a fait accompli, not a possibility that I'm actively fighting off with daily exercise and a healthy lifestyle. I have neighbors, I object. And I talk to Estelle on the phone every day. Estelle Barrymore is an old friend I met in college. She lives in the next town over and has called me every day since Edward died. Neighbors are no substitute for professional care. Vanity smiles her trademark smile. Stretched lips, unaffected eyes. You know, we found just the perfect place. Sunny Acres is a residence for active retirees. It has a pool, a spa, even a golf course. And 20 for our medical staff, Declan adds in an enthusiastic tone. It's perfect. Perfect for whom? I ask bluntly. They exchange glances again. Their habit of communicating without words always annoyed Edward. For you, of course, Declan says, looking genuinely surprised. We're concerned for your safety and your financial well-being. Maintaining this house is a waste of money. Vanity adds, if you sell it now, while the real estate market is booming, you'll make a good amount, enough to live comfortably in the residence and still have some left over. It'll be left for them, I mentally finish. That's what this whole conversation is about, not concern for my safety or comfort. It's a desire to get the money from the sale of the house. I'll think about your offer, I say, realizing that a direct refusal will only provoke more aggressive pressure. Good. Declan brightens and pulls his cell phone out of his pocket. I think we should take some pictures of the house to show the realtor, just for a preliminary assessment, of course. Without waiting for my consent, he starts taking pictures of the living room, the dining room, the kitchen. Vanity, meanwhile, is opening furniture drawers, looking in closets as if appraising the property. Do you mind if I measure the rooms? Declan asks, pulling out a tape measure. The realtor will need exact measurements. I watch their unceremonious invasion of my home, mine and Edward's, feeling a wave of resentment rise inside. But instead of letting it spill out, I just nod and say that I need to check something in the kitchen. Left alone, I let myself take a few deep breaths. Edward was right, completely right about Declan and Vanity. They're not just hinting at selling the house. They're already planning it without waiting for me to agree. And judging by their confidence, they have no doubt they can convince or coerce me. I return to the living room just in time to hear Declan and tell Vanity in a low voice, I'm guessing 600, maybe 700. The house is old, but it's a nice neighborhood. What about her things? Vanity asks, you can't take much to a residence. Most of it will have to be sold or thrown away. Declan shrugs. Old furniture, books, who needs it? I clear my throat, making my presence known. They turn around, but don't look embarrassed. Somehow that hurts the most. They don't even bother to pretend to respect my opinion on my own property. I think I'm going to go lie down. I say, suddenly feeling very tired. It's been a busy day. Sure, Mom. Declan comes over and kisses me on the cheek. We'll call again during the week to go over the details with the residents. And don't forget the documents we talked about. Vanity adds, your will and power of attorney. Declan will need signature authority to help you with your finances. I nod, not trusting my voice. They leave as unceremoniously as they came, leaving me in a house that now seems no longer mine. Only when their car disappears around the corner do I allow myself to cry, not with sadness, but with rage. How dare they? How dare my own son treat me like a feeble old woman unable to control her own life? Wiping away my tears, I stride determinedly to Edward's office. It was time to get serious about the deeds to the Spanish house. The next few days pass in a strange calm. Declan calls twice, telling me what a wonderful residence they found, how much I'll love it, how it will solve all my problems. I answer evasively, saying, I'm still thinking, I need time. On Wednesday morning, the doorbell rings. A middle-aged man in a business suit with a briefcase in his hand stands on the doorstep. Mrs. Newport, he asks, my name is Brandon Quirk. I'm with Homestead Realty. Your son made an appointment for me to appraise the house. I freeze, not knowing what to say. Declan didn't even give me a heads up. The audacity of it all hits me like a slap. This isn't just overstepping. It's a full-on assault on my autonomy. I'm sorry, Mr. Quirk, I say, finding my voice at last. It comes out steadier than I feel. There must be a misunderstanding. The house isn't for sale. He looks puzzled, glancing at his clipboard. But Mr. Newport, your son, said you were eager to get a valuation. He mentioned something about downsizing for health reasons. Health reason. Of course he'd spin it that way. My son was mistaken. I reply firmly, I'm not interested in selling. Thank you for your time. I close the door before he can protest, my heart pounding. That's it. The line has been crossed. Edward's words echo in my mind. That house in Spain is your escape route. I return to the office and spread out the documents from the safe, deeds, bank statements, even a key to the Spanish house taped to a note with the address. El Pueblo del Mar, a small coastal village where the sea meets the sky in endless blue. Edward had included photos, a quaint stone cottage with terracotta tiles, a garden bursting with bougainvillea, and a balcony overlooking the waves. It looks like peace. There's also a contact for a local English-speaking lawyer and a property manager named Maria who handles maintenance. The bank account shows a healthy balance, enough for years of modest living, just as Edward promised. I spend the afternoon on the phone, first to Estelle, who listens to the whole story and erupts in righteous indignation. "That boy of yours needs a reality check," she says. "Go to Spain, Laurie. Live the life Edward wanted for you." Next, I call the lawyer in Spain. His English is flawless, and he confirms everything. The house is in pristine condition, ready for occupancy. Utilities are paid up, and there's even a small community of expat retirees who'd welcome me. By evening, I've made my decision. I book a one-way flight to Barcelona for the following week, then arrange for a moving company to pack only what I need: clothes, photo albums, Edward's favorite books. The rest can stay. Let Declan deal with it. That night, I write a letter to Declan. Not an email or a text, a proper letter like Edward's to me. "Dear Declan, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not dead, just elsewhere. Your father left me a gift you don't know about, and I've decided to claim it. This house in Cloverdale is yours now. Sell it, keep it, do what you will, but know this: I raised you better than the man you've become. Greed has twisted you, and vanity's influence hasn't helped. I hope one day you reflect on that. Don't look for me. I'll be fine. Happier than I've been in years. Your mother, Lorraine." I seal it and leave it on the kitchen table, along with the keys and a signed document transferring the Cloverdale house to him. It's more than he deserves, but it's my final act of maternal grace. The next morning, I call a cab to the airport. As it pulls away, I glance back at the house one last time. The rain has started again, insistent as ever, but this time it sounds like applause. In Spain, the sun warms my skin as I unlock the door to my new home. The sea air fills my lungs, and for the first time in months, the emptiness recedes. Edward was right about everything. This is freedom. I step inside, close the door, and begin again.